we're going to close the show with a quick interview about another cutting-edge film about mass incarceration.
I knew jail was bad. I knew I never wanted to go back again.
We're getting tough on drugs, and we mean business.
America is supposed to be the land of the free, and when you discover how many people are being locked up, it should make people sit up and take notice.
It's a lot watching your children grow up and wave and say bye, Daddy, as they're walking out of a visit. It's just, it doesn't get easy.
Everybody wanted to get into drug cases and get aggressive about it.
And once that door closed, I knew I was going to be there for the next year.
We have 25% of the world's prison population and only 5% of the world's population.
Jailing in the United States is not just detention anymore.
So many of us have lived for 30 years in this box of mandatory sentences and federal sentencing guidelines and the drug war. We have to start breaking out of that box and thinking about a world outside of those confines.
Okay, that was a trailer from the film called Incarcerate US or Incarcerate Us. Maybe it seems like it might be a play on words, but we could learn much more about this film that's going to be shown here. And right now it's being shown in different places around the country. And we have the filmmaker, producer, Regan Hines. He's motivated to make compelling films that shed light on social and political issues that both entertain audiences and move them to bring about change. Hines has directed Incarcerating US to put a spotlight on the problem that is out of control, out of sight, and out of the minds of many people in this country, to illustrate the scope of the problem and the need for drastic reform. Regan, welcome to Voice with Vision.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, we have to try to get him back on the line. But Hi, Regan, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, sorry about that. So we don't have a lot of time, but we want to tell people about your film and where people can get it. Maybe you can start by you do other films on social and political issues. What brought this one about? What was the context?
So I had always been really interested in the war on drugs. I had read all about it and kind of just dug really deep through my own readings, and also I studied political science was my degree in college, so I did some of that with that, but mostly it was on my own, just, fascinated with the topic, and it was just, some of the stories and the statistics were so unbelievable that I felt that this was a topic that deserved a feature-length documentary to shed more light on the issue and just to get it out there so that people could see the context of mass incarceration in the U.S. Because when you hear the statistics about the U.S. being, number one in the world for the prison population, it's pretty shocking if you're not familiar with the topic. So I wanted to really kind of show the history of that and how that occurred, and give people a little bit more insight into the issue.
Welcome to our show. This is Garrett. I was curious, how are you? Do you have an analysis on how mass incarceration in the United States connects with extrajudicial killings of black people or people, in general, citizens, people in the United States, the militarization of the police, but specifically the killings of citizens? How does it? Right. How do we relate that?
Right. Well, the difficult part about making this movie was there are so many different areas to focus on and different aspects of the criminal justice system that need reform. So that's certainly a part of it, and I really draw a line. A lot of these things, not everything, but the most significant factor in my mind, it goes back to the war on drugs in terms of that being a big paradigm shift in how intrusive the tactics have been with police and just how aggressive the measures have become in going into communities and trying to get as many arrests as possible. There was a lot of financial incentives where there was federal grant programs that were provided based on the amount of arrests that police made. So you can kind of see how that would incentivize them to go into certain communities, poor communities, minority communities, where drug dealing happens out in the open a lot more, so they can rack up a lot of arrests. And I think with a lot of that pressure and kind of the ramping up of the war on drugs with all of the different ripple effects from that, created a situation where it just put, the police at odds with these communities where, they can't trust the police. There's not as much communication. And in the movie, we talked to a former police officer who was actually a commander of training, and he worked in Baltimore and Maryland Police Department, and he really just talks a lot about how the relationship between police and community has completely been broken, and a lot of that goes to the war on drugs and the types of tactics that they use with, SWAT raids happening every day and going into these people's neighborhoods and just trying to make arrests for these nonviolent crimes. So I think that's a big factor. If we could get to that root problem and have some reforms on drug policy, I think you would see a lot different policing tactics, and I think that would be really addressing the root of the problem.
A lot of these, in the 60s, I guess, 60s, 64, late 60s, mid 60s, the Panthers, Black Panther Party, kind of addressed the same issue. So what would you say to people that would argue that the extrajudicial killing of black people existed even before the war on drugs,
Right, yeah, well, that's the interesting part about the sort of creation of SWAT teams. That was one of the earliest one was on the Black Panthers, the raid with that going on. So you could certainly, see that might have been an issue that, certain people could point to that and say, look how, concerning this group is, we need to do something about it. So that was an early one, but I think if you really look at the stats on how often these SWAT team raids, if you want to use that as just one sort of measuring stick for it, the vast majority of it is for drug raids, and you can see how that's sort of a good thing to point to justify it, or to allow you to do it so much, because obviously you can say, there's drugs all over the place and we're finding them, so that's one way that they can justify it and say we need to go, knock doors down. I, of course, would argue that that's an absurd policy, but, we haven't made a dent in the drug problem, so they can, continue doing that, and more police departments all across the country can get the equipment and, have their own SWAT teams. So I think that's really the biggest factor that's sort of, contributed to the militarization.
Yeah, it's we've on this show we kind of cover so much of that. There's a lot of factors, because people could even argue, well, why even why even militarize the police? There's so many reasons. There's the fact that this is a military, an imperialist country, so militarized, and the fact that we're a colony, we're really regarded as not regarded, but our relationship to this country, people, black people and people of color in general, particularly even indigenous people of this country, their relationship to this country, to the power structure and whatnot, is the same as a colonized person to a colonizer, colonized people to a colonizer. And so really what the root cause of this kind of stuff is, it goes really deep. I was wondering if you could talk about what brought you to this work, what brought you to this particular issue, your background, your personal journey on this.
Yes. So, like I said, I studied political science in college, and that's when I, kind of was first exposed to some of this with the criminal justice system. My plan was to go to law school. Had a change of plans. I went in a different direction and started working in film, and really this topic specifically just became one that I was reading about the most, and it seemed like the most important to me to really put my time and energy into making a movie about. And I thought if we could, put a human face to this problem and tell some compelling stories and show people, just what's really happening so that they're not just seeing statistics, I thought it'd be a great way to kind of spread the message about it. So that was really what it was. It was just, the more you read about it, the stories you read, you just feel like this is something that everybody needs to know about. And I felt that if everybody had enough information and context and could hear some of these real personal stories, they would have to, come to grips with the real situation, and I think would support reform. So where is the film touring now, and where in this area can people, and when in this area can people This Thursday night, September 15th, is going to be the premiere event, which is at Georgetown University Law Center. That event actually just this morning I checked, and it is sold out. So I was going to encourage people to go to the website, which is incarceratingus.com, to see about going to that event. That event is now sold out. but we are having screenings.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pretty big success in terms of the reach that it's gotten so far. But there will be more screenings in the D.C. area. So, I mean, the best thing that people could do is just go to that website, incarceratingus.com, and check out our screening maps, see if there's one near them. It'll also be available online, so people can purchase that and watch it from the website. They can download or stream right at that website, and they can also take part in the panel discussion that's going to go on this Thursday night.
Are you going to be there?
Yes, I'm going to be at the event. So we're going to kind of sort of kick things off with that. And We're going to have a great panel of experts to discuss the issue after the screening, and we're going to have a Facebook Live where people can watch that as well.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, I'll be there, so I'll get to meet you there. And so
great.
Yeah, we were speaking with Regan Hines, who's the producer and filmmaker of Incarcerate Us, or Incarcerating Us. That's going to be screening this Thursday at the Georgetown University Law School. So that's a wrap for us on Voice with Vision.